All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to this explainer, where we are going to physically immerse ourselves in the absolute alien punk, high-stakes survival story of Planet X. Today, we're unpacking a gritty, intense narrative of otherworldly oddities and profound metamorphosis. We're going to virtually touch, taste, and feel exactly what it is like to be stranded on a hostile foreign world, a place where the environment itself forces you to evolve or die. But before we get into the nitty-gritty lore and the wild biology of this place, I want you to consider a question. What would you sacrifice to survive? Because today, we're tracking a human scientist named Lucky, who has to give up his very humanity, literally reshaping his physical form just to survive a waking nightmare. This isn't just your standard find-a-way home story, It's a deep dive into extremophile biology, twisted alien caste systems, and the incredibly heavy price of survival. Chapter 1. Welcome to Planet X. Okay, imagine the absolute bone-rattling jolt of a crash landing. Lucky is thrown from the wreckage of a ship straight into a dense, bioluminescent jungle. And this is not some peaceful, serene forest. It literally pulsates with this malevolent, almost electric energy. You can practically smell the thick, damp earth and decay in the air. The trees loom overhead, their branches looking like skeletal fingers just reaching for the sky. He is instantly forced into pure, visceral survival mode. Make no mistake, the planet itself wants him dead. In those frantic first moments on the ground, he's literally tearing the fabric off his own battered high-tech exosuit just to fashion some crude furs. He's grabbing branches, swinging makeshift clubs just to fend off these snapping, golden-eyed alien hounds creeping out of the shadows. It is a crazy, jarring collision of advanced human technology and brutal, primitive survival. Let's move on to Chapter 2, Secrets of the Afinkers. So, bloody but alive, Lucky manages to stumble into the Afink village. And right away, survival takes on a very strange chemical flavor. See, the gentle Afinkers don't just use ink for art. They use biologically enhancing fluids. Blue Zilak ink flows through their systems to boost strength and agility. Green Korvoth grants intuition, and amber ink radiates literal physical heat. Lucky, being a scientist, immediately starts observing these volatile chemical reactions, trying to decode their alien alchemy. But the absolute center of their society is the heart of the ink. It's this massive, pulsing orb that serves as both their cultural and literal power source. When Lucky is brought before it, the orb hits him with a terrifying, blinding vision. He sees an invisible, floating metropolis suspended high above the planet's sea, a city made of cold, metallic air and dark silver spires. And then the mystery deepens rapidly. The very walls of the village start whispering, and then they erupt. Writhing bioluminescent ink tentacles shoot right out of the stone, wrapping tightly around Lucky and his Afink translator Lyra. It's a cold, wet grip that violently drags them up into the sky, pulling them straight through the clouds toward that unseen, terrifying city from his vision. Which brings us to Chapter 3, the Extremophile Metamorphosis. Hiding up in the cold, metallic labyrinth of this floating city, Lucky discovers a really brutal hierarchy. Down below on the surface, you have the gentle Afinkers. Up here, hiding in the shadows, are the Kazakhs. There are these cold, calculating merchants. But at the very top of the food chain are the Extremophiles. These are highly evolved, telepathic beings with twisted bodies, and they are violent enslavers. They are, without a doubt, the apex predators of Planet X. Now, to survive in this hostile environment, Lucky and Lyra are forced to trade some rare glowing flora for a mysterious extremophile puzzle box. And touching this thing induces a horrific biological metamorphosis. Lucky actually feels his vulnerable human skin harden, encasing him in thick, dark leather scales. His jaw literally snaps and contorts into a sharp, turtle-like mouth, and his vision violently narrows down to a single, glowing golden bug eye. He physically transforms into the very monster he's trying to hide from. A Kazakh merchant actually watches this body horror transformation happen and coldly tells them, "You have become one of us, where the strong prey on the weak and only the most cunning survive." And man, it is not just physical. Lucky and Lyra's minds are suddenly bombarded with the telepathic whispers of the entire city. They're thrust right into that predatory extremophile mindset, feeling this terrifying biological urge to dominate. Lucky has to use every single ounce of his human willpower just to keep his true identity intact beneath those scales. Moving into Chapter 4, Awakening the Fuzzballs. Fighting off that mental corruption, they decide to journey back down into the jungle depths. Their target? The legendary Fuzzballs. Now, these guys aren't just cute, furry pets. They're an ancient civilization of telepathic, spherical creatures absolutely brimming with volatile, naive energy. The Extremophiles have been freezing and exploiting them as living batteries, but Lucky, with his human scientific background, realizes their power can actually be harnessed. When these creatures interact, they create explosive, elemental chemical reactions. So, leaning into their terrifying new Extremophile forms, they pull off some seriously dark espionage. Lucky trades his knowledge of human quantum mechanics just to intrigue a towering insectoid high priestess, while Lyra uses her cunning to charm Crickstick, a powerful beetle leader. By playing these hostile factions against each other, they somehow manage to secure access to the heavily guarded Fuzzball temple. They finally breach the temple's core, this ancient chamber just humming with trapped energy. They successfully thaw the Fuzzballs, including two brothers named Zig and Zach. But that triumph is shattered almost instantly. The walls suddenly slide open. The Extremophile kings are waiting in ambush. They actually allowed Lucky to bypass the security and thaw the chamber, just so they could swoop in and immediately enslave the newly awakened creatures for themselves. Which takes us to the climax. Chapter 5. Betrayal and Escape. Completely outnumbered by these twisted creatures, they execute a frantic, brutal, tactical retreat deeper into the labyrinth. And this is where Lucky's experiments finally pay off. He harnesses the naive powers of his new Fuzzball companions, forcing them to physically collide. This triggers massive chemical reactions, literally blasts of elemental kinetic energy that shatter the temple's ancient stone blocks, crushing the Extremophiles and funneling the survivors into deadly, narrow kill zones. Against all odds, they successfully fight their way down to the legendary underground Fuzz Castle, a massive, cavernous space carved completely out of iridescent crystal. But right here is where the ultimate knife twists. Lyra drops her mental disguise. She delivers this chilling telepathic thought straight into Lucky's mind, revealing a horrifying betrayal. The Extremophile metamorphosis didn't just change her body, it unlocked her darkest ambitions. She has allied with the kings. Subduing Lucky, Lyra claims the underground castle as her new throne. And in a truly gritty, terrifying turn, she begins breeding with the Extremophile kings right there in the ancient crystal chamber. It is a grotesque fusion of flesh, scales, and dark alien biology. She's corrupting the sacred space as more nightmarish enslavers are rapidly born into the world. In that moment, Lucky realizes the planet is totally lost. Lyra is just too powerful now. Knowing they cannot possibly win against this new brood, a frantic countdown kicks off. At 0 seconds, the Fuzzballs, Zig and Zach use their buzzing telepathy to cast a mental shroud over Lyra's radar. At 30 seconds, utilizing his scaly Extremophile strength, Lucky silently slips right past the writhing mass of monsters. And at exactly 60 seconds, they hurl themselves headfirst into a shimmering dimensional vortex. So Lucky escaped the physical threat of Planet X, but man, look at the cost. He sacrificed his human body, he lost his closest companion to the allure of absolute power, and now he's hurtling through dimensions as a scaly alien, armed with nothing but two buzzing elemental creatures. When you completely change your very biology just to survive the abyss, how do you ever find your way back to who you were? What kind of twisted realities await him in the foot race food dimension? Well, we are just going to have to wait and find out. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep your curiosity sharp.